If I could have your attention, please. If I could have your attention, please. We have a really busy night tonight. All the candidates are here, we promised. And I would encourage you all, if you could please be quiet, but continuously get up, get your food, come back, etc. I once again would like to emphasize to you, we'll have the pledge. I'll introduce a few folks, and then we'll have the speakers. Right after that, the questions. If you haven't done your questions, go out to the 3x5 cards out in the hall that Lori has, and we'll ask questions from there in about 20-minute period. I'll still give you about 45 minutes, 50 minutes to have a great time mixing. Encourage the candidates to go around and say hello, of course, to the people during that 45 minutes. The flag is here, so if you could please rise, and I would ask Sheriff Schiff, DA Farrell, Legislator Sorensen, Legislator Vetter, and our County Clerk, Dan Briggs, to please come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Folks, where are you? Here they come.
Place your right hand over your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, you can see I'm trying to save time. In terms of introductions, would all of the elected officials at every level, the committee persons, and others please stand to be recognized? Okay. All the elected officials from the various towns in the county, you please stand, and the committee persons, the Republican committee persons. Gary Moss, where are you, the vice chairman? Make sure you stand up, and Rodney, the vice chairman. Okay, very good. All right, I would like to start with, I had not realized miscommunication, but Claudia Tenney, who's the assembly person from the 100th district, 101st district, is here, represents the town of Neversink, a great friend, and I'm going to ask Claudia to please come up at this time and say a few words, and here she comes in the back here. Thanks, Claudia.
I just want to say thank you to Dick and thank you to all of you. And as you know, I only represent Neversink, right over here, or over there. And I just want to say thank you to all of you who supported me in the primary. I won by over 81%, 82% in the primary, so I very much appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you to all of you in such big numbers to be here. On my way up in the shuttle from the Villa Roma to here, our bus driver told us there aren't any Republicans in Sullivan County. And I said, there's got to be a few. So here you are, the whole room. But thank you very much. And thanks again to Dick and to all of you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy. She's philosophically with us all the way. I might add we had to add another table in the back there. We're really sold out. Tremendous crowd in this Democratic county. And that's pretty exciting. Certainly a tremendous friend of Sullivan County, an advocate for Sullivan County. I don't know what to say other than this man works tirelessly for our future, for our jobs, for every single one of us. Would my good friend, State Senator John Bonasek, please come forward.
What is it that you want me to do?
Just be fast.
Speak? Yeah. First of all, good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight. As you know, I don't have an opponent, so I think it's important to talk about our Congressman Chris Gibson. I think this is a gentleman that is a war hero. He is a scholar. He is a family man. He's a man of substance. He represents our values, and he's not afraid to speak for all of the people. So I ask you, when the time comes to vote, I know that you're all Republicans here, but make sure you share your thoughts about Chris Gibson with your friends, your neighbors, your relatives. He stretches over 10 counties. So I think it's important that we all get out and support this gentleman, because I think he's going to have a very bright future. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, there was a snafu. Lisa Fisher, a very capable candidate for the 3rd Judicial District, was unable to be here at the last moment, and we had advertised that she would be here. So I've asked Sharon Jankowitz, who happened to be up there with Zach Kelson and others of us at the Judicial Convention that chose her, to speak on her behalf. So Sharon, would you please come forward?
I will. And as I said before, Lisa Fisher was here for the Sullivan County Bar Association dinner last night, and she told us a little bit about herself. She has been a general practitioner. She has worked for the Public Defender's Office, mostly in the family court setting. She has worked for the Department of Family Services as an attorney. She's been a court attorney. She's practically worked in all aspects of the law. She's had a private practice. She knows the various parts of the law. She's a very qualified candidate. I'm so pleased that we as Republicans have endorsed her. She is one of the most organized people I've met. You know, there's a saying that if you want to get something done, give it to a busy woman. This is a very busy woman. In addition to having her own private practice, she has 3 children that her and her husband have adopted from Russia. They're all 15 years old. She lives in Greene County. She works in Ulster County. She travels her children to Troy, New York to go to school, and she still maintains a very active practice. So wholeheartedly, I support Lisa Fisher, and I hope that you'll do the same. Thank you.
I would ask Sheriff to please come forward, Mike Schiff. And I just wanted to say for one moment that Rodney Gable and myself were honored to be down at the Republican Convention in Rye, New York. And it was a really exciting convention because an unbelievable young man, the county executive from Westchester County, Rob Astorino, was nominated for governor. And an amazing young man from upstate New York in Chemung County by the name of Chris Moss was also nominated. It was pretty exciting to see their families up on the stage. They have been in every corner of this state. And so I'm pretty excited. Rob has been here in Sullivan County a couple of times. We're very impressed with the campaign they put forth. It's critical to get out the vote, but I would ask his fellow sheriff and my good friend Mike Schiff to do the introductions.
I'd like to introduce Chris Moss, Sheriff of Chemung County. Impressive guy. Started as a regular deputy in the office. 15 years later, he's sheriff. Chris got elected the same time I did, so we went up to the Sheriff's Association together. I got to know him a little better by being up there with him. He's a very impressive man. He's got a lot of integrity. And when the SAFE Act passed, he's a big friend of the Second Amendment. Sheriff Howard and him went up and saw Governor Cuomo, and it was not a friendly discussion. They didn't back down. They weren't intimidated, and the governor was not going to push them around. They let him know what our stance was on the Second Amendment and the SAFE Act. Chris is the president of our association, and he's a man I think a lot of, and I hope he'll be our next lieutenant governor. I'd like to introduce Chris Moss.
Good evening. I want to thank you for having me tonight. I want to thank the sheriff because I've been to Sullivan County a couple other occasions, and the sheriff always makes sure he comes and introduces me. So like many of the other sheriffs across the state, they've been great in coming introducing me to the folks in their counties. To tell you a little bit more about myself, I'm born and raised in Elmira, New York. I have a master's degree from Marist College in Public Administration. I'm a graduate of the National FBI Academy, and I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 26 years. 9 of the last years I've been sheriff. Last year when I was elected my 3rd term as sheriff in November, the day after the election, I was contacted by the New York State GOP, and they congratulated me on winning sheriff. And they asked me if I'd like to be on a long list of LG candidates come next year. So I said, sure, you know, I kind of joked about it, really never thought another thing about it until the following spring when they contacted me and said that the process was going to start, and I was on the list. So one thing led to another, and in May, I found myself in Westchester County meeting with Rob Astorino. There were a couple of qualified candidates at the time. I got the opportunity to speak with Rob at length. He asked me questions, I asked him questions. I saw what Rob had done in Westchester County, how he decreased taxes, created private sector jobs. I knew that he was against the SAFE Act. He's got a family, young family. I have a young family in public schools. So you know what? We had a lot in common. But the one thing I did ask him, I said, Rob, Democrats outnumber Republicans in New York State. How are we going to win this? How are we going to be funded and so forth? And he said, you know what? It's going to be a simple plan, a simple process. In Westchester County, Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1. And Rob has won there twice. And when I asked him how he did it, he said the plan is we're going to talk to everybody. We're not going to talk to them as Democrats or Republicans or working families or conservatives. We're going to talk to them as New Yorkers. We're going to go all over this state and we're going to tell everybody how we can make New York State great again, how we can make New York State a better place to live. So what have we been doing since May? Rob's been doing it since March. We've been going to every corner of this state. I've been to all 62 counties at least once, as has Rob. And you know what? We talk to people as New Yorkers and it's resonating. So you know what? If you saw the polls today, Siena, they had us down 35 points this summer. We've got it down to 20, and that's the poll that's hated us the most Democratic. So you know what? We are right there. We're right where we wanted to be. We want to be in striking distance. 2 weeks from now, we'll be right where George Pataki was when he won it in '94, and they said he was 12 points down the Sunday before the election. So we can do this. You know what? And we've stuck with what we've been talking about the entire summer. The Democrats have tried to move us to the social issues, but you know what? People want to talk about cutting taxes. They want to talk about jobs. They want to talk about Common Core, and of course, in upstate New York, they want to talk about the SAFE Act. And the SAFE Act has paid off big for us throughout upstate New York. If you've had the opportunity to travel to Erie County, Monroe, Onondaga, the SAFE Act signs and the supporters are everywhere. Scope has done a phenomenal job for us. So you know what? There's only one last thing to do now. Rob and I have put the plans out there. The governor's put nothing out there. All he's doing is running nasty commercials that are starting to backfire on him. So what we need you guys to do is one last thing. Over the next 2 weeks, we'd ask you to, when you go home, talk to your neighbors, your friends, your relatives. Don't talk to them Republican to Democrat. Talk to them as the nurses, mechanics, doctors, whatever they are, and say, you know what? Rob Astorino can make this state great again. Can we do everything? No, we can't. But you know what? There's a lot of good things we can do. The business atmosphere in this state is horrible. It's driving businesses away. Regulations are driving businesses away. You know what? We can do a lot better job. We will do a lot better job. I want to thank Claudia Tenney and Chris Gibson for all the stumping they've done on Rob Astorino on my behalf as they stump around their own district. And I look forward to taking this thing to the finish line. Believe me, nobody's got more energy than Rob Astorino. When I get home every night at 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I am beat. But I look at the schedule, and Rob's schedule is almost twice what mine is. So you know what? We got 12 days to go. We're going to run it to the finish line. Mark my words, we can do this. If we get a 60% vote out in upstate New York, we can and will do this. I want to thank you for having me tonight. God bless you.
I just want to add one comment, and that is the following. Lieutenant Governor candidate Moss, go home and tell Rob Astorino he will carry Sullivan County. I have never in my career, and I've been at every level of government, ever had so many emails and calls for signs. Lori Benjamin can attest to this. We had 500-year signs, couldn't keep up with it. Chris Gibson, the same thing. I've never had this before. And please note when you ride around the county on your way home today, they're on people's lawns. They're not along the highway. And I do want to say one other thing to you, Sheriff Moss, and that is there are Democrats, there are Republicans, there are conservatives, there are independents in this room tonight because your issues are resonating with all the folks. And so are the issues of the next gentleman, and that's Congressman Chris Gibson. Do you ever stop and think of how fortunate we were when the courts redistricted? This guy, Chris Gibson, was pushed south. And I remember he and Mary Jo and their children actually met here. She was coming up from Washington, and Chris was here, and they were campaigning for their first term. And I say fortunate because this man's for jobs, this man's for your future, this man is so well educated, this man was born and brought up in his district, and he knows the district. This man has been in every town. No, I'm wrong, Congressman. He's been in every hamlet in every town in this particular county. He's an awesome person, smart as a whip, and along with that, so humble, so outgoing, so approachable. It's an honor to us to have you here tonight, Chris Gibson, Congressman Chris Gibson.
Hey, thanks very much, Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen, it's actually it's my privilege to be here tonight, and thank you for welcoming Mary Jo to be with us here as well. And I want to begin by just expressing my gratitude. And I would not be standing here today if it weren't for your hard work, which you have done. You know, I appreciate last winter because they moved the cycle, and so we had to do our petitioning early during the snow, and you guys got out and carried those petitions. Thank you. Thank you for that. And now, as I was making the trek here from Kingston, you know, indeed, what the chairman mentioned, I saw our signs along with Astorino Moss. I saw our signs on lawns. You know, this really makes the difference. You know, especially when, quite frankly, both Astorino Moss and myself were being significantly outspent. You've seen that. So I just want to start by my gratitude. And then also say this, that, look, I listened very carefully to what your message was to me, for me to be advocating for you down in Washington. You asked me to work on 3 broad things and then keep a local focus. Those 3 broad things were to help the economy. And to do that, we needed to change the underlying business environment so that we could grow jobs. Here we're talking about lower taxes, lower energy costs and taxes, and lower healthcare costs. Streamline regulations and make smart investments. And I'm here to tell you that we worked on this. We brought forward the Farm Bill. That Farm Bill is going to be good for upstate New York. It's going to be good for rural America. We worked on lowering energy costs. That means expanding supply. And I hope you've noticed that our gas prices have gone down about 30 cents or so over the last several months. I know how important this is. I grew up in a working class family. When those gas prices started spiking, that really hurt us. And I know how much that impacts across the whole entire economy. So that first thing he asked us to do was help grow the economy. We've got more to do on that. I'm fully supporting our family resorts here in Sullivan County, and I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that that's going to happen. We know that's not the entire solution, but we want that to be part of it going forward. Second thing you asked me to do was to keep moving our country back to a balanced budget, because this is important for future generations, that they get the same choices and freedoms that we've had. We don't want to leave this country. We do not want to be the first generation to leave this country worse off than we found it. And we won't. And my report to you is this. My last year in the Army in 2010, the annual deficit was almost $1.5 trillion. Now this year, it's still going to come in too high, about 480. But because of your vote, because of the historic election, you know, we have cut the deficit by 2/3. By 2/3. That's significant. We're on our way back to a balanced budget. And you know how important that is. The third broad thing that you asked me to focus on was protecting this exceptional way of life. Protecting it from threats from abroad, like the Islamic State and other threats that may be emerging, but also from encroachment here at home. Stand strong on the Bill of Rights. And my report to you is I've absolutely stood strong on the Bill of Rights. Absolutely the Second Amendment, and also the First Amendment, the Third, and the Fourth Amendment. I'm proud to tell you I have the strongest record on the Bill of Rights of any representative of any party from here in New York State. And I'm here to stand with you, to stand with you. You got it right. All the way across on that, all the way across. Local focus. You asked me to keep a local focus. And that's why we put the office right here. We said we're going to put a full-time congressional office right here in Sullivan County so that we can listen every day and we can look to make a difference with small businesses, and we've helped them navigate the regulatory agencies, the federal regulatory agencies, and we've worked veterans issues. I want you to know that I've listened. You guys were very outraged, and for good reason, about what happened in Arizona for our veterans. We took action. We passed the most sweeping reform of the VA in our lifetime. We're going to have access now to more local doctors. For those that live 40 miles more from a major treatment facility, we're now going to be able to use local doctors. We also strengthened the VA, and we brought forward more accountability. And we're working that in our office, and we're going to expand that. We're bringing a wounded warrior on to work with Chrissy Schiff right there in the office. So we're going to strengthen our office right here. A local focus on storm relief and on fighting Lyme disease, and on expanding broadband, and on helping these family resorts. These are the things that you asked me to work on. I want to close with this. I want to close with where we are today, just 12 days away from this election. I want to say this, that look, historically speaking, these elections, which are called midterms, I start to shudder, I think I'm back in school again. These elections, historically, the turnout is 40%. But there's nothing preordained about that. There's absolutely nothing preordained about that. It's up to us. It's always been up to us. And I got a good feeling. I got a good feeling, when I was in the Army, when I commanded at the brigade level, I could go into a company, I had 30 of them, I could go into a company within 5 minutes, I can feel the climate. I could feel the atmosphere in the company. If people were looking you in the eye and giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly, without hesitation, you had a good climate. That's a good command climate, because people were facing the reality and they were looking to get better. And I'm telling you, I got a good feel in Sullivan County. I got a good feel that people are coming together. Republicans, conservatives, independents, and a fair number of Democrats coming together to change this environment. We know we lost 400,000 people in this state in the last 4 years. People have up and moved. Some of our friends, some of my friends, they're in the South now and other places. And I've met people in the last 18 months who thought about leaving, and I asked them, will you stand? Can you rally? Can we rally right here? And we've got a candidate we can get behind, and Mr. Astorino, and Chris Moss, who's a great soldier for him and for all of us. And we appreciate him giving from his family to be out. I've seen this man everywhere. He is selfless. He is out there bringing the message. Can we stand with him? Oh, heck yeah, we can stand with him. So on this election day, on the 4th of November, we don't leave any single vote out there. We need to get with all our family and friends. And as Chris mentioned, it's not about party. It's about our state. It's about our state. We want to have growth in this state. We want to have opportunity in this state. We want to make sure that we have the autonomy to educate our kids in this state. You know, there's nothing that a bureaucrat can tell us. We trust our teachers and parents and administrators. We want to have that freedom. We want common sense, not common core. We want to repeal that SAFE Act. So to do that, we've got to have the right governor there. So let's do this together. Let's do this all together. Let's get everybody out to the polls. Let's have victory for our candidates. Thank you. Thank you.
A good Democratic friend of mine who could not be here tonight did buy a ticket. Long time, very influential person said to me, "Oh my gosh, Dick, what a group of candidates you have." And it's so true, right on down the line. They're very, very impressive. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit more time for mixing and talking to each other. If you just stick with me for a few more minutes. Once again, if you want to refill, go on over, whatever. But if you could stick with me for a few moments, we have the questions that you folks have asked of our candidates, and I'd like to go through them with you. We're only going to do a couple for each one because, of course, it's important for you to meet the candidates also. I'm going to start with John Bonasek and with Claudia Tenney, if I could. John, I have a question. If you could, we have a question for you. And Claudia, if you could come up too. You know. All right.
Okay, what's the question?
We're going to do this together?
No, two different ones. The first question from John. I'm sorry, when they transposed them so I could read them, I don't have the names of the people that asked them, but what will happen if the state Senate loses the Republican majority?
Wow. Let me just tell you, it would be a disaster for upstate New York. When the Democrats controlled everything in Albany, governor's race, controller, attorney general, both houses of the legislature, they raised taxes by $8 billion, and they increased spending by $12 billion. But you know the worst part? MTA tax was imposed. You know, in our state, there's about 9 million people in the metropolitan area and 9 million in the island and upstate. 55% of the state budget went to the metropolitan area for education, healthcare, transportation, and 45% went to the rest of the state. That's when the Democrats controlled everything. But it gets worse. Do you see what's happening in New York City with de Blasio and Sharpton? Did you ever think Sharpton would be instrumental in public policy and the policy of New York City? Things like we always knew, values. Let me just give you an example. I always thought the police were our heroes. Can you keep it down over there to the right? Can I ask for a little quiet over there?
Hey, Alan.
Alan, little respect. Can you keep it quiet, please? Thank you. Well, you can take it outside. Okay? This is serious stuff, I'm going to tell you. Values. The police now are the villains. Okay? And the criminals are being protected. Stop and frisk is now something that makes the police villains. When they brought crime down in New York City, better than any other city in the country under Giuliani. It's going up again, violent crimes. The progressive liberal policy, get ready for this. They want education money for the illegals, okay? Middle-class families are struggling to send their kids to school for education, right? College, incurring debt. What the city Democrats want to do if they take over the Senate is give financial assistance to illegals. If you're illegal in a foreign country, you might get shot, you might get tortured, you might be in jail, you'll certainly be exported, right? But that's the values they're promoting. Now, we stopped all of that in the Senate. The last wall of sanity, okay? So, I tell you, I don't care what your party affiliation is, that progressive liberal movement is killing America, okay? Killing America. And it's leading to the polarization of America. Under Governor Pataki, we reduced the welfare rolls by 1 million people. You had to prove that you are who you say you were to get welfare. You had to show identification, that you were the person that was entitled. Today, they undoing all of that, undoing everything. Giving away phones, refrigerators, TVs, and basically open border philosophy. You know what that is? These are the Democrats in Washington and to a certain extent in New York City that are trying to give away the soul of America to capture the Hispanic vote, which they say is anywhere close to 12 million people. So I have nothing against any ethnic group, none at all. But there's a right way and a wrong way to become a citizen of the United States. So that's, I didn't mean to get carried away, but there is so much riding on to keep a majority Senate. And let me just say this. I haven't talked about Mr. Astorino. On substance, this man is awesome. He knows his facts. He knows his values. And at every turn, he can make Cuomo look stupid. That's why Cuomo doesn't want to debate him, because he's afraid to get in front of a camera and try to defend a lot of the things he has done. Astorino was right on. I know he is an underdog, but he needs our support. Thank you.
let's do one more on the state level, one for both Claudia and for John. Are you optimistic about the future of Sullivan County and the economy? Claudia, you want to give a
Thank you. Let me just say ditto, John Bonasek. The biggest thing that there are two big important issues this year. Number one, we don't want to just have a shared relationship in the Senate where we have the Democrats, some of them citing to be part of the Democratic co-leadership agreement. We want an outright majority with the Republicans in the New York State Senate. That is the only answer for us. And the biggest thing that I would love to see, and I'm still hoping, and I'm hoping that all of you get out there and vote, is that we have Rob Astorino and we have Chris Moss as our new governor and our new lieutenant governor. That is what's going to change New York. It's our last best hope. And as a person who sits in the minority in the Assembly, Sullivan County's future rests on the fact that this Senate can become a majority and that we can finally have a Republican who is ethical, smart, a super guy, Rob Astorino, and Chris Moss, who, by the way, I don't know, Chris Gibson was saying he sees him everything. I see him everywhere too, and I'm on the other side of the state. So really working hard. I know Chris Moss is a sheriff. He's got an incredible resume. Rob Astorino has done a fabulous job. I've seen Rob Astorino everywhere. He's done a great job. So he would be just the one thing New York needs. I'm hoping, I can't believe this, that the Daily Kos is right. Their poll said that Rob Astorino is winning 46% over Cuomo at 44% and Howie Hawkins 10%. And I don't even read the Daily Post, but I'm just saying, I saw it on Twitter and I said, yes, hallelujah. And I said, don't underestimate upstate New York. I'm driving around all over the state. I have 7 counties. My one town is Neversink. But you see, there are Astorino signs, Moss Astorino signs everywhere. They are everywhere in upstate New York. In fact, we notice when there's a Cuomo Hochul sign somewhere. We notice it. Oh, look, somebody's got a Cuomo Hochul sign. There's a couple. I have a couple of cities, by the way. But it's very rare to see that. So if the upstate voters, and let me just go back to one thing that's a really important issue. If only the registered gun owners, which are there are 6 million registered gun owners, if half of them voted, we would have an Astorino Moss ticket we'd win. So please, if you're a gun owner, please come out and vote. Thank you.
The future of Sullivan County, invest in their stock. It's going to go up, up, up. I know that it's been my hardest county to bring economic vitality to since I've been a state senator. I've been here now 16 years. And, what we knew of Sullivan County was the great resorts, where came all of entertainers. This is where they wanted to be. But what happened was the resort owners kept taking the money out, never reinvested everything, and the resorts became old, antiquated, and so did the Sullivan County economy. Your sales tax, when I first started here, was about 1/3 of what it was in the 60s. Your wealth has diminished, okay? And I don't say that to depress Sullivan County. The spirit here is awesome. The way of life is awesome. The natural beauty of this county is awesome. And what you needed was a game changer. A game changer. Now, when I could access money when I was in the majority, I gave more to this county than I did my other 4. Now I only have a total of 4. Because on redistricting, I lost Greene County. And as much money as that I tried to bring into Sullivan County, and people appreciated our efforts, but we couldn't really have it take off with momentum. Because, I know almost every block in this county because I traveled it all over. What I envisioned, Bethel Woods was a grand slam. That was the Gehry Foundation. Just so you know, when that started, we came up with $15 million. Alan was going to give $30 million to start it. He put up to $75 million in that. Why? Because he's a perfectionist. He looks at every grade of grass, that it's the same size. Every tree is watered, and he keeps giving back. and he wears Sullivan County on his arm as a great benefactor. Not only in Bethel Woods, but in all aspects. Your hospital was on the verge of bankruptcy. It's stronger now. Your health care is so much better with Crystal Run and the affiliation with Orange Regional. Your Sullivan County Community College is much better under your president now. There's a buzz there. More people want to go there. And I know that although I don't have any say in the gaming selection, I would take it to the bank that we're going to get at least one resort destination in Sullivan County. Now, just so you know, from day one, Cuomo said to me, we don't have many silver bullets in the gun for Sullivan County, okay? When this started, this gaming referendum started, so I was always under the impression that that was his way of helping Sullivan County. I never know why he slipped Orange County in there. He told me, but it's part of the Mid-Hudson region. And just as an aside, so you know, and I don't need to be taking a lot of the mic, if Sullivan County gets one casino, Orange County picks up $4.9 million. If Sullivan County or Ulster County picks up the second casino, Orange County picks up another $4.9 million. So they pick up $9.8 million into their county. This is according to the budget office now, if they don't get a casino, okay? And I have always said that it was to help the disadvantaged counties. So you know, the next senator that will replace me, it's an Orange County seat. Half my constituents now are in Orange County. So why am I out there promoting the economically disadvantaged counties? Because that was the purpose of the legislation. And you people deserve it most. Like Moses, you've been waiting 40 years for things to happen, and it's going to happen this year. Thank you.
I really shouldn't say this, but you know, few people are bigger than life when they're still in office, but what this man has tried to do and is doing for Sullivan County is just awesome. What a fight he's put up. John, thank you. Okay, if Lieutenant Governor Mossie's here already, gosh, okay, perfect, would come up and just 3 questions for you and then 3 for the Congressman. Once again, these all are coming from you. You filled them out when you came in. Well, this is the first one on the top, I know already. How do you feel about the SAFE Act?
It won't take too long. Look, you know what? I've been in law enforcement for 26 years, like I told you, and I'm here to tell you the SAFE Act hasn't made us any safer. If Governor Cuomo, if they had statistical information that the SAFE Act made us safer, don't you think they'd be shoving it down our throats? They would. They won't even give us the numbers of weapons that have been, number of weapons that have been, assault rifles that have been registered. They won't even give us that information. They won't get the media that information. The fact of the matter is the SAFE Act hurt law-abiding citizens who already have to wait 6 to 8 months to get their pistol permits. Anybody here can go out on a major city street on a Friday, Saturday night, pick up a handgun for $100. That's the fact of the matter. That's what it's like. The SAFE Act hurts law-abiding, property tax-paying citizens. It's got to go. I don't care for the SAFE Act.
Okay, thank you. The sheriff's tall. I always have to pull this back down. Please comment on Cuomo's record on jobs and taxes. I didn't know he had one.
I mean, I'll talk about the Startup New York campaign, because you know what? As I travel around the state, we're finding Startup New York is smoke and mirrors. Some municipalities have benefited from it, but the fact of the matter is it has to be this type of business in this area, regulated by these regulations. And the fact of the matter is, I'll use the Buffalo Billion, for example. I've been to Buffalo over a dozen times in the last couple of months. In the areas of Buffalo that I'm visiting, let me tell you something, They're not seeing the Buffalo Billion. They'll never see the Buffalo Billion. Nanotechnology, you know what? A lot of people don't have the education to get those jobs. And furthermore, when you go by the hospitals and the colleges that are getting some of the funding, you know what? There's no Hispanics, there's no African Americans. And you have to remember, the city of Buffalo, 35% African American. So they're very upset that they're not seeing the Buffalo Billion. So you know what? And then I go down to Chautauqua in Cattaraugus County, and they don't have a regional medical center. If somebody gets hurt or seriously hurt in a motor vehicle accident, they have to be flown to Erie County or Niagara County to get care. So they look at it as, how does Buffalo get $1 billion, yet 3 counties away, we can't get enough money to have a decent regional medical center here. So we have to take economic development, we have to look at it, we have to level the playing field so everybody gets what they need. Can we give it to everybody? No, but what we can do is make sure that, you know what, one area of the state doesn't get something for votes. Come on. Cuomo lost Erie County last time. What's he trying to do? He's been up there 24 times in the last month trying to butter him up with money and grants and so forth. Everybody can see it though. It's not going to work. Let's have economic development where upstate, downstate, Long Island, everybody benefits equally.
Another question is the following. What is the Astorino Moss plan for education and Common Core?
You know, Common Core has been huge, not as big as the SAFE Act. Common Core on Long Island is like the SAFE Act is in the rest of New York State. Look, Rob and I see Common Core as this: Washington, D.C. sticking their nose in the locals' business. So what happens, Washington, D.C. contacted Albany, and now we have Common Core. I have a 3rd grader, and you know what? I sit down with them at the table, and we do the math, and I look at it, and you can't do the math the way you used to do the math, whether you come up with the right answer or not. Everything is templated, and I think that's what Common Core is. It's a cookie-cutter method of educating our children, and now we have teachers teaching to a manual instead of to the individual needs of the children. The children in New York City need to learn something different than the children in New York State. Or I'm sorry, the Adirondacks. But you know what? You look at it this way. We pay our superintendents and our principals big amounts of money. Our teachers could make more money. But the fact of the matter is, our educational platform should be done on a local level. Washington, D.C. needs to butt out. Albany needs to butt out. We can do it locally. You know what? Do we need to have standards? Sure, we need to have standards. But we already have the New York State Board of Regents. Why aren't we using them, you know what, to implement our standards? So we can do it. You know what? Government is smaller. Let the locals control government. Albany, stick your nose out. Washington, D.C., stick your nose out.
Great job. And once again, I was with Pataki back then. We're very good friends, and so was Dave. And I can remember I was in Italy with Penny, and I got a call from George on an ag issue. I'm not making this up, and he said, we're dead. It's 6 weeks to go. And of course, Mario Cuomo, one of the smartest politicians in America, went and spoke about Wilco, and I forget what the other issue, and boom, down he went, and George came out and won. Isn't that true, David? And so it can happen. We certainly are seeing tremendous support for you upstate here, and we all have to get out and vote. It has to be a huge turnout upstate. Okay, there he is. Everybody's ahead of me tonight. We're doing the best we can, so then you can, please, if the candidates would please mix with the people. They spend a lot of money to come over here. There's a lot of them here, and please mix with them and have a chance to talk to them. Are there any federal programs to help with broadband in our county? Chris?
Yeah, there are. This is a major priority for our office. The question was on broadband. The federal government has 2 big programs that we can help be a partner when it comes to broadband. The first one's in the Farm Bill. In the Farm Bill, we have the Rural Utility Services title, and in that we can do telemedicine. We've done some work here in our district. In fact, Margaretville Hospital was one of the first to do it, and with that grant, they were actually able to deliver their first baby in 40 years with that access. This is a couple. Margaretville Hospital is interesting because there's 2 doctors there and they're married. And so they actually were able to take their first vacation in a number of years because they were able to stay on call in Bali, halfway around the world, because of telemedicine, because of that grant. And then also with Hurricane Irene, 2 trees came down in the town of Hardenburg in Ulster County, and they were, it was life-threatening. and the doctors were able to consult through this broadband expansion and save the lives. So that's one program we have, the Rural Utilities Services in the Farm Bill. I've been working with Kitty Vitter, Cora Edwards, and others on the county legislature, and what we're looking for now is a plan that they can submit so we can actually come in behind it with letters of support. So that seems to be moving along. There's another program that's helpful, and this is the Connect America Fund. And this is under the Universal Service Fund. This is a different area of the federal government, but this is actually a bigger pot of money than in what the Farm Bill has. There's an issue though that I've been fighting, and I think we're getting change on. This money was about $4.5 billion, and it was meant to proliferate mid-mile and then ultimately final mile for broadband. The problem was this amount of money was only going for the big companies. And the big companies, and I'm talking about your Verizon, and Frontier and some others, the problem was if it wasn't profitable for them, they weren't engaging with the program. So even though we authorized and appropriated all this money, it wasn't used. So I've been really on the administration to change the rules. Let our family-owned businesses and our co-ops, because we have a co-op in Delaware County and Otsego County, electrical co-op, let these entities get access to these programs because they live in our communities and they know how important expanding broadband is. It's important for job creation, it's important for healthcare delivery, and it's important to education. Most of the schools now have access to broadband, but the problem is when the kids go home, if they're not in a home that has broadband, they fall behind. Because there are other students that are going through and have access to broadband, they're getting a competitive advantage here, and it's just not right. We believe, our party believes in equal opportunity, and part of equal opportunity means we're going to get foursquare behind education, and to do that, we need to be working harder on broadband. So, look, it's been 2 yards in a cloud of dust here in this county, but we're in the huddle, and we're going to keep moving it forward.
We'll just do two more, Congressman. As a retired Army colonel, can you please give us your view of the situation with ISIS? Every day I pick up the paper, I can't believe it. You see the 700 people crucified? It's just incredible.
Okay, the Islamic State. First thing I want to tell you is that I know this enemy personally because they've actually rebranded themselves. You know, before they were the Islamic State, they were Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And this is the enemy when I was leading paratroopers in Nineveh province and Mosul and Tal Afar that we fought. And you know, I have to tell you, for as proud as they are of themselves, I never saw their commanders out fighting. You know, when my troops were fighting, I was out front with them. And so, you know, I certainly respect their ability to take life because we have to stop that. But you know what? Mostly I found them cowardly, quite frankly. And the acts that they did were unspeakable. I'll share with you one of them just to give you an understanding. You know, one day in my sector, I got the call that there had been about a half dozen local Iraqis that had been executed. I moved to that location as quickly as I could, and it was very evident to me as I rolled up on the scene. These were Iraqis that were working with us on our forward operating base who were doing nothing more than trying to make a better day for their countrymen. They were trying to help spur the economy, and Al-Qaeda found out, and so they executed them at point-blank range. Now, they did this with a pistol. And the tragedy of this is that, and it's just awful, these were innocent people, and you know, when you come upon them, you can see rigor mortis, you can see frozen on their face, the fear, the last emotion that they had. And you know, I was 4 years old at the time. And you know, I grew up Catholic, I'd studied, I could pass a test about what evil is. But I don't think I really saw the devil's work on earth until that day. And this is the enemy that we're fighting. We're not going to be able to deter this enemy. The question is, what's the smart way to deal with them? Okay, what's the smart way to defeat this enemy? Because I'll tell you what this enemy's trying to do, they are trying to define this struggle as a struggle between who they describe as the believers versus the non-believers. There's an element of that in this, but that's not what's really going on. This is extremism. You know, what they're doing every day is they're killing and maiming mainstream Muslims. And And I'll tell you what, the best way to defeat this enemy, in the short term and the long term, is to help the mainstream Muslims defeat this extremism. Because here's what, make no mistake about it, this is what this enemy is doing. This enemy, the Islamic State, formerly Al-Qaeda in Iraq, they're going all around the world and they're going into madrasas. And I'm talking about in Asia and other places, and they're saying, what are you doing for the cause? And I'm sure that somebody there, the madrasa, is probably saying, well, you know, we're doing this and we're doing that. And their agent's saying, you're not doing anything. We're over there fighting the great Satan. Haven't you seen it on BBC? And by the way, have you written a check yet? That's what's going on. And so when we help the Iraqis and when we help the Kurds to defeat this threat, it not only neutralizes their military capability, but it lessens their ability to fundraise and to recruit globally. And see, that's the key thing here. Now, I want you to know this. As Americans, we always reserve the right. If we find out that this enemy is in the throes of a plot to attack us, we're going to take any means necessary to protect our people. Okay, so I want to be clear on that. If we find out it's some kind of plan and they're rehearsing it and they're going to conduct an attack on our people, we're going to protect our people. But as you heard, the intelligence community has assessed that although they've expressed a desire to strike us, they don't yet have that capability. And that's why I believe that while we can, we should be working with the Iraqi army and the Kurdish forces to defeat this Islamic State in Iraq. Now, Syria. Now, I voted against arming those Syrian rebels, those so-called moderate Syrian rebels. Here's why. They're militarily incompetent and they're politically untrustworthy. And I gave this thing a full look. I said I would give it a fair hearing. I spent 2 days, 2 full days, going through hearings, looking over maps, looking at all this plan. We have not set the conditions for an escalation in Syria. We don't have a credible partner there. And if you think about it, what did the administration say? They said the big idea was that we need a competent ground force or the airstrikes won't work. Now, I know I ran into some veterans here tonight. You know, I actually agree with that logic. But here's the problem. They undermine their own big idea with the course of action. Because the rebels aren't even going to be trained for 8 to 12 months, yet they started the bombing within 10 days. And now you've been reading how the bombing campaign struggled. You've got to set the conditions. When we did these operations, you have to set the conditions for success. That means isolation, that means support, that means maneuver. There's so much integration that has to be done. You just can't go and just say we're going to go do a military operation when you haven't set the conditions. What we should be doing in Syria right now is diplomatic work. We should be trying to get the government of Syria by pressuring, and by the way, Assad, this leader, I mean, he considers himself a Parisian or a man of the world. Have you ever seen the pictures in his office? This guy, I mean, he's no Che Guevara. I can tell you that much. He's not going to go to ground anytime soon. So, you know, if we froze that guy's money, he'd be crying to get it unfrozen. And we unfreeze it and give him a part of it, and he's got to go. This is what we did in 1994. You remember Aristide in Haiti? I mean, Assad's going to have to go, and the remnants of the government of Syria, we should be working with our friends and allies across the world to compel them to sit down with these rebels to get some kind of brokered agreement. If we can get a competent political authority on the ground, then we'll have a partner. And then we can talk about maybe dealing with the final destruction of the Islamic State in Syria. But just doing what we're doing right now, I couldn't go along. And I voted no. So I want to tell you this much. And let me give you the third point real quickly. Since this enemy has expressed a desire to attack us, even though they don't have yet the capability to do that, the other thing I'd be doing, if it were my call, is I would be securing our borders. All borders. South, north, and the ports. You know, we got to protect. So look, I want to end where I began on this, is that I take this very seriously. I was in uniform for 29 years, and my doctorate, my dissertation's in national security decision making, and I know you're counting on me for me to keep you safe. And I feel the weight on my shoulder on it, but I'm ready for this. And every day I'm down there, I'm thinking of you, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure we're safe. Safe from the Islamic State, safe from Ebola, and that, you know, our folks here, that we can live in freedom and have a flourishing form of life. So, You know, so let me just say this as a closing point on this, is that we're in a challenging period on this. And I will keep you updated as we go along. But I do think that in the near term, we are going to have some success helping the Iraqis. And the key then is going to be what happens in Syria. So we're going to have to stay tuned on that.
Wow. Will Congress, this will be the last question, will Congress stop any new gun control actions by this president?
Yes, and here's why. Look, I am a husband, and I'm the father of 3, and just like you, I'm very concerned about our kids and our community, and I know you are too. It's just that we firmly believe, based on reality and our experiences in life, that when you target law-abiding citizens with your law, no one's safer. We're not safer. And what it ends up doing is dividing us. I mean, quite frankly, you know, the 2 things, number 1 is we've already got laws on the books that we don't enforce. You know, we had a situation out west in Webster where there was a felon who got out of jail. And by the way, he was in jail because he used a blunt instrument to kill his grandmother. And he got out of jail and got access to a weapon and killed first responders. We've got to enforce the laws that we have. And then going forward, what we need to take a look at is those with very severe mental illness. I'm not talking about veterans with PTS. You know, I'm talking with people with a clinical diagnosis of psychosis or some schizophrenia with homicidal ideations. There's more that we can be doing in terms of mental health to help protect our community. And that's where we ought to be focusing going forward. So let me just close with this, is that, you know, as I said when I started, this is a privilege to serve you. You may know I'm not looking to be a career politician. I have self-imposed term limits. I believe in that. I believe that we as a people can find a representative, send them to either Washington or Albany. We work hard for you, and then we rotate out and somebody else goes forward. I believe in this. But for the time that I'm working for you, I promise you this. You've got my undivided 24/7 effort to keep moving this forward, to make us have more opportunity, more freedom, and for us to have a flourishing form of life here. I agree with the assessment. Oh yes, I think our best days in Sullivan County are in front of us. They surely are. We've got some hard decisions to make. I think we need tax reform at the federal level. We're paying too high taxes here in New York State. It's just we lead in all the wrong categories, and we can help with the federal government by getting a tax reform where we close loopholes and lower rates. 2/3 of the American people don't even itemize. When we're talking about lowering rates, we're talking about a tax cut for the American people, which provides a private sector stimulus. That means for our small business owners here, you're going to have more patrons. You're going to have people who want to buy, you know, if you're in construction, you're going to see more kitchens being fixed. And you're going to see more extensions on houses. And you're going to see people buying cars. And that's what drives the domestic economy here. And so I'll be fighting for that tax reform. And I'll tell you this, we're going to keep working to optimize the regulatory state, because I know that for our small business owners here, that's not been going well for you. We're going to keep striving for that. And we're going to continue to work to lower your energy costs. I'm encouraged that the gas is down. I want to see it stay down. And I'm hoping that, you know, these utility companies are ready. We don't want to have what happened to us last winter. So, you know, I close with this, is that I appreciate you very much, and I'm looking forward to a big victory for our team, and then continuing to work this going forward. Thank you very much. God bless you.
If you could just remain standing for one moment, could you just give a round of applause to all these candidates? Everyone we asked is here. They're awesome people. They deserve our support. I would also ask you, they've traveled long distances, to take the time to meet them personally and say hello to them and thank them for what they're doing for you. God bless all of you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. What a wonderful turnout. I agree with that Democratic friend of mine. We have some group of candidates this year in the Republican Party. Take care and thank you.